I was just told behind the scenes that I was muted. Very awkward way to start, but nevertheless, we keep it pushing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of In Event Talks. My name is Deji, and I'll be your host for today. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, In Event Talks is an original series by In Event where we speak to guests who are thought leaders working in a number of diverse industries. So today our topic is from magic to technology. So captivating event experiences. From magic to technology, captivating event experiences. And we are joined by a wonderful guest speaker who goes by the name of Vincent Bruneau. Now, Vincent is the founder and CEO at SparkUp, which is an audience interaction platform for meetings and events. But there are a lot more interesting things about Vincent that I'm going to get to in a second, because you definitely need to know this. Vincent is also an accomplished musician, a laureate in jazz and clarinets from the National Conservatory of Music, as well as a pioneer in street magic with his own unforgettable TV show where he tricks celebrities and passersby alike. And that is easily my favorite fact of Vincent. Now, Vincent's path is an extremely unique one as he's transformed the techniques and all effects that he's learned from Magic into a unique tech platform designed for audience engagement, and in the process become one of the most in-demand innovators in Europe and the United States. And this is just for people who are trying to make corporate events and meetings more captivating, energizing, and interactive. I am so glad to get to look back on his career full of twists and turns in today's In Event Talk. Vincent, it's lovely to have you with us today.
Hi, what introductions. Thank you.
Yeah, and I see that we
Yeah.
both have the, very retro classic earphones on today as opposed to the AirPods that everybody has. So nice one, nice one. So I'm just gonna start with something. I think my first question is a bit of like a personal one. A little birdie told me that you're recently a Burning Man, and I'm so curious to hear a bit more about that experience.
That was not planned to talk about Burning Man, but well, Burning Man. I mean, yeah, it's like it's my sixth burn, so it's not the first time. And honestly, Burning Man for me, it's like a multi-sensory experience where you have, and we are going to talk about engagement, about magic, about connections. And for me, Burning Man is all about that. In one place, it's a magic place where you can connect and experience a lot of different. From art to music to magic as well. You meet a lot of artists, and it's a beautiful place for that.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I just wanted to start off with that because I've never been to Burning Man myself, so I was just very curious. But I'm going to jump straight into a bit more about like your career and like highlights and different things to this point. So my first question I would like to go to before being a CEO of a tech company, you were a professional magician and you still are. So I think the first place that I want to start with is like how did you become a magician and what was your background like before SparkUp, which is the company that you founded?
Okay, so that's well. So I would say my background was like music, science, and TV. Before Spark, before tech. I mean, I've never done tech before. I did a little bit of science at university, but my background before Spark Up was 15 years of conservatory to become a professional musician. That's what I wanted to become. And I was playing the clarinet and working hard 8 hours a day at the conservatory. And then I discovered magic pretty late. Maybe I was 14, 15 years old, but I never wanted to be a magician. I mean, magic found me literally. Never decided like, hey, I want to be a magician one day. But magic found me because, I mean, my clarinet teacher was doing magic tricks before every course. My math teacher at university was passionate about magic and was making tricks to us and teaching us tricks. So it was fun. I liked it. And then I started to do a couple of tricks. I had met a couple of mentors, one in Italy, a guy called Arthur Brachetti, and a German guy called Romaric. And I started to work with this guy. It was pretty cool, during university. And then boom, Nickelodeon was and SpongeBob was coming to France, and they were like opening the TV channel, and it was like, okay, a friend of mine said, hey, do you want to try to? They were looking for a magician, 50 magician, and I got selected. So first TV show, 2 years on Nickelodeon doing magic for kids was
Wow.
pretty intense because I was doing science at university aside. So I mean, quite like okay, it was not just a side job. You had to create like magic for a TV show for MTV, and then after that I created my own like primetime show, hidden camera show. I was using magic and prank for famous people in France, and I signed my first five primetime show. I was like 23 years old. That was pretty
Wow.
intense.
Yeah.
And then I built my production company, co-produced my first primetime show on Street Magic on other channels. And from MTV to all of this, like 5 years on TV, 6 years on TV, nonstop doing shows. That was pretty intense. And the street magic was more like David Blaine was huge already in the US at that time. It was more like creating a supernatural effect in a day-to-day environment. Like you are going to your bakery and something amazing happened, you know. So 10 years on TV, I would say, and as a professional magician in total. And in the meantime, I created my own agency called We Are Magic, where I started to use magic as a tool of communication dedicated to brands. So the goal here was to help brands, I would say, amplify the experience between their product and their clients using magic and anchoring the key message of the brand. We call that an emotional climax, you know, to make them more impactful and memorable, you know. And of course, my first connection, just right before Spark Up, was with tech because in 2012, 2013, you know, where the first iPads came on the market, I was starting to combine, of course, magic and technology. And I've been developing my first app on iPads to combine magic and technology. And that was maybe my first bridge, you know, linked to tech.
Nice, very interesting.
Hard to
It feels
resume
like
like 15 years of your life in, in 1 minute, but like, I mean,
in
I'm
order to
feeling when
find,
you speak about magic, tech, and science, I was like, oh my God, that's a lot.
it's very interesting because it feels like the more that we have these talks, the more that we realize with career paths and lots of like the journeys that people have is that they seem to find them. So the journeys seem to find us as opposed to we finding the journeys. And I feel like you've just kind of reaffirmed that today as well, just kind of like starting with magic and ultimately ending up in tech. So that's a very, very interesting way to get your start in the industry. So I'm just gonna follow up on that because that was a very interesting answer to the first part. So I'm curious, what was the first trick that you learned, and what would you say today is your favorite trick that you do?
Okay, it's a really hard question for magicians. Why? Because the first trick I would say that I've learned that impressed me a lot at that time, you know, I don't know if you have seen magic in front of your very own eyes. The first
I
time you
have,
saw a close-up magician, and you know, do you remember that experience? You know, when the magician
yes.
is right there and you see your first trick, and it's kind of like what I'm going to describe right now. It's exactly maybe what people when they saw some magic right in front of their eyes, this kind of experience. It was for me, you know, the kind of like the handkerchief that disappear from your hand, you know. You put
Mm,
the handkerchief on your hand, it's gone, and it reappears from nowhere. And for me, that was quite the first time I was like, wow, I mean, like magic exists, magic is real. Magic is real. And it's like, I was like pretty blown away because I used to see a lot of magic tricks that was pretty like easy to understand. But, and the second part of the question is like more what is your favorite trick, and to be honest with you I would say it's not about the trick itself. There's a lot of effect and categories in magic: cardistry, mentalism, pickpocketing, coins magic, and there's a lot of, and as a magician you work on all these fields, you know. But I would say for me, and I would tell you the one I prefer, of course, even if I've been studying all of them, most of them, but I would say for me it's more about the present moment, the situation with the people that you meet and which effect, which experience you are going to choose to perform to them. And maybe 10 years ago, I was just doing tricks. I was like, okay, I got this, I got that, I got that. And I was just more performers. But right now, it's more the experience of the people I meet. I'm like, okay, what kind of effect or trick I'm going to do with these people right there? Because that will definitely change the situation, the result, and create a new reality. You know, we will talk about a lot about new reality today. You know, but in terms of magic, I like a lot mentalism. Mentalism, it's a part of magic which is for me very invisible and very powerful. It's more linked with the mind and the brain and with your personal experience. It creates powerful, deeper connection between people, and I love mentalism for that. Of course, I love to do card tricks, but my favorite is more mentalism and mind readings. And but again, the question for me is more about which experience is my favorite, my favorite one. And I would say that I personally like illusion and experience where I can increase people's connections, which is very related to what I do with Spark Up today, and where I personally feel that I'm not a performer but just a connector. You know, and when you
Yeah,
feel you are just the connector, people are like, wow, I mean, this guy is performing for us, but he's not like in front. I mean, I'm not on stage right now just performing. I'm just connecting people. And when you use magic for that, it's pretty powerful because you amplify the experience. And you were just talking to Burning Man, and let me tell you a quick story. I was at
Sure.
Burning Man, and someone I was doing one magic trick for someone just for fun, And this person said, "Hey, I'm with my best friend. She's blind, and can you do some magic to her?" I was like, "Wow, uh, she's blind. What am I going to do?" And then I
Yeah.
did a trick where, and they were best friend, and I did a magic to her where when you touch one person and the one is feeling, and I was touching her friends, and I was asking this woman, like, "Do you feel something?" And she was exactly feeling the same spot where the other one that I was touching. And I told her at the end, it's not about what you see, it's about what you feel. And
Mhm.
here you amplify an experience with someone, which is at Burning Man, and it's like, and magic is all about that. It's all about the experience the bond that you can create between people. That's
Yeah.
what I like. That's my
Yeah.
favorite trick.
Yeah. That is very interesting. I think when you typically think about magic, or let me say when I typically think about magic, I definitely think about the performance aspect a lot more. But hearing you say that it's more so about connecting people is an angle that's very interesting. So I can imagine if you didn't get like certain reactions or certain feelings when you gave these things, when you did these tricks with these people, it probably wouldn't be as rewarding for you. Would you say that that would be
The, the
accurate?
re- you mean the rewards?
Yeah, like would you say so? How I'm trying to put it is that if you didn't get like that feeling, so for example, like the lady whose friend was blind and asked if you could do a trick with her, like if you didn't get the feeling that comes with like maybe surprise or like just intrigue or being very interested, it probably doesn't feel as strong for you. As what would it feel as strong for you?
Yeah, and that the reward is huge, and that's why because everyone has different perceptions. I will do a
Yeah,
trick to you, and the perception that you will have is not the perception
mm,
of like your neighbors, and your
yeah,
neighbors might cry on the same effect, and you don't know why, where. And we'll talk about surprise a lot because surprise is a big thing, and on our topic today, the way you create surprise, but the reward is big, and that's why the experience is interesting because you are like, okay, this person, I cannot do this trick, I cannot do this one, but this effect is going to be beautiful because you already know what's going to happen as a performer. But so you already kind of like know what kind of outcome you will have, rewards you will have. So that's why the experience is extremely important more than just the trick itself. That's why I don't have a favorite trick. But
mm,
after 20 years of magic, it's more like I have plenty of effect. I'm like, alors, okay, this is what I'm going to use right now as a tools. It's
yeah.
more tools right now that just like, that's my favorite trick. I'm going to impress everyone with it and I'm going to be the best magician in the world. No, it's not like that anymore. But I've changed. I mean, maybe I was that guy 15 years ago. I'm not that guy anymore. No.
Yeah, yeah. So what really sticks with you over time is the experiences that you create with people. That's a good thing to
Yeah,
note. Very, very good
yeah,
thing to know. Thanks for that. So I think now the next question that I'm going to move to now, I guess we've spoken a bit about the magic background, is more so tech based. How did you find the idea of SparkUp?
yeah. So, I mean, so I was using magic as a tool of communication on corporate events, and I was doing that a lot. And my job was to reconnect the audience with the corporate message and creating a strong emotional climax between the key message of the brand and their employees and clients. And I was doing like 20 shows a month, doing that, for corporate clients. And I realized and noticed that communication during live events or corporate events was very, very, very like top down, audience feels left out, content doesn't come to life, attention is strained. People think that it would have been more productive to with content by themselves that come to the event. People walk out uninspired and engaged, and that's why as a magician I was coming on stage to create a lot of dynamic with the content, but what does the word really engagement means? I mean, it means like sharing insight, sharing creative energy, bonding, building trust, collaborate, and move forward together. So getting people attention is what you do as a magician, immersing them in a new reality, surprise them. We're talking about surprise. We'll come back to that, and making messages come to life. So how can we scale that? Because as a magician, you come on stage, it's just yourself. How do you really scale that? And this is where I created a platform for audience engagement, SparkUp, in order to help people grab and hold their audience attention. And the goal of SparkUp was to empower audience to participate more with what is going on during the event, to activate, to give a voice to everyone, and a platform that created a more immersive experience, whether in person, online, or a mix of both. Well, at that time, it was just on on-site events,
Yeah,
interactivity. And so it definitely came from magic. And also, I was using a lot of combining magic and technology. And in 2011, 2012, when I started to think about the idea, people were like, hey, we have like iPads. How can we interact? We use all these iPads or devices to interact with the live stage. It was still new on the market, when I started to work on with technology I feel it. I'm speaking like I'm 80 years old right now, in terms of like post-COVID time. But yeah, that's why I studied. I was like, okay, how can we interact? Can we bring give a voice to everyone and pushing people to interact more with the stage?
Nice, very nice. And I'm sure, no doubt that yeah, I'm sure as we speak more a bit more about this, then we're just going to keep seeing how the magic kind of is infused into your day to day with SparkUp. But I think the next question that I want to ask is I think maybe I should just kind of like give some background to it before I ask. So SparkUp, for those who don't know, is a platform to boost real time participation and offer everyone a front row experiences as far as like events and things are concerned. So when you make all your attendees parts of your event, whether virtual, hybrid, or in person, how would you say it starts for you? Like, where does it start,
Yeah.
Vincent?
So we've developed a next generation platforms that help event organizer and communication professional create captivating and energizing and impactful event experience. So how does it work? You connect to the web app, activate your webcam, start to watch the live stream, activate your camera, and then the magic happen. SparkUp generates a video mosaic on the live stage that organizers can display on any type of screen. So all the remote attendees are visible from 0 to 100,000 of participants. Speaker can see them live on stage, and attendees can see themselves, which is super important. To be able to see yourself or see your peers or see someone that you know from the live screen. Kind of like a small Zoom, but in a giant live situation with interactivity. So attendees can watch the live stream from our web app, or it is possible to embed our project into in event, for example. And then you can allow anyone to share their emotions, raise their hand if they want to talk, and you can add a lot of interactivity in overlays. So live polls, quizzes, word cloud, it's overlaid completely inside the video player, You can share your emotions and your non-verbal feedback, which is super important because I watch a show, I can share my emotions all the time, which is different from a live show where when you are on site, you can only clap your hand when everyone are clapping their hand. But when you're on
Yeah,
a virtual event, you see yourself, you see people that you can share your non-verbal feedback. And everything is streamed with ultra low latency, which is so important. You want less than 2 seconds of latency between the virtual audience, the speaker, and the interactivity that you have, which is so important, and that's what we do with SparkUp. So you go from passive spectator watching a super top-down streaming to a super active spectator where you feel you are part of the event. You have this kind of like experience of front row seat. You are like here without being there. And that's
nice.
how the Spark platform works. It was interesting because we've been doing like a lot of events during COVID time and post COVID time. It's like now we are getting into this kind of like hybrid worlds where and we've been doing like mosaic with sometimes 30 to 50,000 people. Where you have like hybrid event with 4, 5, 6,000 people on site and 10,000 on the mosaic for like global conference, where people like feel that like, hey, I was there, I've been there, and it's not just about like I was watching the replay or just a top-down video.
Yeah, yeah. So it feels a bit more active. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. I think I'm just gonna keep asking a couple more questions as far as like just incorporating magic into the overall scheme of SparkUp and just how that is incorporated. So I think my next question then would be, what techniques of magic do you use in SparkUp to keep your audience engaged in your events?
In another way, DG, you want to know all my secret, right?
Yes, please. Like, what's the secret sauce? What's
Very
the
expensive.
recipe?
No, so yeah, so it's a great question. It's not an easy question to answer, but let's say that let's get technical a little bit. More than techniques or methods, it's more of a recipe, with different ingredients. Because and also understanding how human interaction works is important. Magic is more process of innovation and a way of thinking, which is like tech. Tech, you keep iterating. Magic is the same. It's iteration, iteration, iteration again. So I would say I'm going to share with you three very important things, which is one, creating a new reality. What is creating a new reality? Important. What is misdirection? And how do you create surprise, and why surprise is so important today. So are you ready for it? It's a bit
Sure,
technical. I
sure.
will try
Go
to
for
keep
it.
it super easy. So Creating new reality, first thing. Like, let me explain how magic works in your brain very briefly and maybe reveal some techniques. A magic trick creates a new reality in your brain. So your brain needs constantly to create a stable and consistent reality and a representation of the world. So, and your brains are synthesizing hundreds of little pieces of information from our environment at any moment of the day, you know? So this is called in cognitive science, the theory of ambiguity reductions. Okay, sounds technical, but this is how it's called, you know. So as soon as you send ambiguous image to the brain, so a magic trick, for example, that you don't understand, it creates a coherence break, and your brain feels super unstable. And this is where it creates a new reality for the brain, and it generates an emotion. That's the first things, you know, and it's a process, you know. So your brain is going to feel unstable. It's not going to understand what's happening, and then it's going to try to with this perception to understand. It's not going to understand, and boom. So magic tricks create a new reality that generate a positive emotion, which are most of the time interest, joy, and surprise. And we come back to surprise. Why surprise is so
Okay.
important? And surprise is exactly what we want. You know, any kind of event, you want to surprise people. You know, if you surprise people, then you know they feel engaged. They are part of the engagement. You know, you want to surprise them. And my job has been to surprise people all my life as a magician. And I was thinking like, okay, when you recreate that in Spark Up, how do we surprise people? You know. So, and I will come back. We'll come back to that a bit later. So the second thing is misdirection. You know, so we often say that magician masters the art of misdirections, and this is not entirely true because magicians are masters of directing your attention. You know, and a magician wants you to be very focused and wants your attention on one specific thing while he's secretly doing something else that later surprise and fool us. You know, and attention is super important. Attention span is super important, specifically on a virtual event where you don't specifically want to listen to the speakers or the content is not that interesting for you. So how do you capture people's attention during your event? And we'll see how we do that a bit later. And I would say the last thing is creating surprise. And creating surprise is very powerful. It's a very powerful marketing tool to engage your audience. Surprise is addictive. Studies show that people are designed to crave the unexpected. Surprise changes behaviors. Unexpected events drive learnings that change our belief and behaviors. Surprise is cheap. Magic is perfect to create surprising brand stories into the smallest space possible. You don't need a huge media plans or production budget. Surprise turbocharge emotions. It amplifies whatever you are feeling. Combine happiness with surprise and you feel amazing, you know. So imagine a huge live mosaic. People can share their emotions. Emotions are contagious. Since the emotions of people makes you feel emotion as well. So you know, it's like all these kind of like recipes that you will combine into this mosaic experience. So how do you connect that with Spark Up? Well, we immerse people in the new reality because you are home, you connect yourself, you see yourself. So we immerse people in the new reality by shifting passive viewing to interactive participations, you know. And we focus the attention of attendees on one point, the video content, of course, live polls, quizzes, a lot of interactive tools. But live polls and quizzes are in their video overlaid to keep viewers glued to their screen. You know, you don't want them to look to someone else to interact. You will lose their attention. You know, so people can be heard, share feedbacks, opinions, ideas, comments. They can raise their hand as well on the mosaic and be invited as guests for conversations. You know, and all of this, you know, I would say it's the way you know you will. We said that on virtual event, every 5 to 6 minutes, you have to reactivate people, or you will lose their attention. You know, so
Yeah.
you have to reboost interactivity and activate reactivate people every 5 to 7 minutes. You know. So, for example, right now, if I want to activate you, DG, I would just grab a €5 bill. You know, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, you ready? And boom, it would just fly in the air like that. You know, it's like it's flying in the air like that. You know,
Woo.
and boom, and boom, I'm gone. You know, there is no
Oh
one.
wow.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But boom, I got you. I got your
No,
attention. I got a
definitely. I thought
smile.
for a second
I
you're
got your
gone.
emotion. You're with me. You know.
Nice.
But
Very nice. Very
yeah,
nice.
that
Go on,
was
sorry.
easy. That was easy. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
that was easy for me.
I was lucky. Maybe you pull a rabbit out of a hat.
But you glad I'm back and I didn't really disappear,
Oh
right?
yeah, for sure. That would have made this so much more awkward. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a trick that I would love to know a bit more
No,
about.
but
Maybe
like
offline.
just like short was important. You know, it's a mindset. That's why it's not like, hey, what kind of technique do you use? Well, the technique
Yeah.
that I use is like my goal here is to create a new reality. So if I come to see a live show, I see myself, I can share my emotion, interactivity comes to me right in front of the video. That focus my attention, misdirection, because I'm going to
Yeah.
focus on one thing, one very important thing. I'm not going to
Yeah.
cook. I mean, while I'm just watching a stream and like that. No, I'm here. I'm in the time is now. You are
Yeah.
really in the present moment.
Yeah.
So our goal as well is to be sure that people are on the present moment. Which is
Yeah.
hard on hybrid and virtual events. Because
Yeah.
you have to fight against attention span.
Definitely, definitely. And I think that point about the point about resetting is a point that I actually haven't come across before, and I find that very interesting. I'm wondering if outside of even things that are like magic that are eye catching, could shock be a good reset as well? Maybe like a really loud noise or something like that.
Is it a question?
Yeah, this is a question. I'm just wondering. This is me thinking out loud.
I mean, like, so you mean you're on stage and you are doing some magic live
Yeah, so I'm saying
to
like
crowd?
what other things could be a decent like resets for a virtual event? Like is shock, for example, a good one? Like is something shocking or something appearing on the screen? So like sometimes you have a virtual event and your cat runs across the screen. Like is something that small or minuscule a good reset, or is it something that has to be more intentional and thought through?
Yeah. So, I mean, there is plenty of things, but for example, and I'm going to reconnect. I was talking about live mosaic, but just when you
Hmm.
have, and I've done event myself where you have like 3,000 people, even if as a performer or as the CEO of my company, where you reveal a mosaic of like 500 people, 200, 2,000 people around you, and these people see themselves. Honestly, you feel the energy, you feel the wow moment. You have a wow moment without having the people live. And I
Hmm.
think, and that's for example, it's a way to capture people. What you want at the end of the every 5 minutes is to capture people's attention. But if I see myself, if I see my peers, if I see other people smiling, I want to smile. If I see other people clapping their hand, I want to clap my hand. It's like emotions are so contagious, and the hard part is like how do you recreate this sense of belonging, this sense of like connection on a virtual event? It's tough. It's hard. I mean,
Very.
like we are talking about metaverse. We are talking about. I mean, you have your little avatar, but honestly, my non-verbal communication is gone. I mean, 55
Yeah.
of our communication is non-verbal. So, how
Yeah.
do you see? So, I would say magic is great. I mean, it's all about surprising. So, any kind of things where you can surprise your audience at some point that is not expected is good to capture attention.
Nice.
Interactivity is nice. I mean, it's good, but we have done polling all our life. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that with a poll you will just transform completely. You will grab your crowd attention. But once it's a lot of little things, and the way the experience will be designed, that at some point will be like I feel engaged. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be like now it's time for you to answer a vote. The vote should come to you. You vote, but you even if you don't pay attention to the fact that you've been interacting. Because you are fully
Yeah.
focused on the stage and on the live show.
Yeah. And I actually think that leads me a bit more to my next question now that you mentioned that. Um, so like you said, one of the concerns of virtual events is that human interaction, like the absence of the nonverbal communication, some of the stuff that we've come to rely on in modern times or just today in order to like have effective communication and like real connection with people. So in that note or in that line of thought, how then do you humanize the online experience?
So it's interesting because talking about non-verbal communication, just on a one-on-one video call, 20 just your eyes are 25% of your communications. So looking at your eyes will give me at least 25 to 30% of the non-verbal. So speaker, for example, on a live show, speakers truly suffer from not seeing their audience and receiving feedback from their audience. 55% of our communication is visual, body language, facial expressions. So it's like 60% of your communication is nonverbal. So how do we solve that? We humanize. I mean, we try to humanize the online experience, and I think like plenty of things has to be done in the future. We're working on a lot of new concepts, even spatial sounds, 4D spatial sounds. How do you feel on this mosaic? Like, hey, you feel like you are the sounds all around you. So how do you we humanize the online experience and we make all the attendees visible on this live mosaic. That's which is one first things. How do you recreate this nonverbal? People can see themselves, and that recreate an authentic feelings of presence, of togetherness. And interactivity as speakers for the speaker can see the audience, their reactions, feel them, and that make a huge difference from just speaking to a camera and having 1,000 people watching you, but you have no connection with them.
Yeah.
I would say that in addition to the mosaic, the live stream of the event is displayed on SparkUp with less than 3 second latency. So the feedback and honestly, during COVID time, it was a lot of streaming with like 10 to 15 seconds, and that doesn't work if you want to
Yeah.
create. I mean, the real time is key. So 3 second latency so the feedback of the audience are received practically in real time. That will create spontaneity, and spontaneity is key because you want the people to feel like, hey, I just share an emotions. Oh, I just say something, and everyone I've seen what I was thinking about. So real time is super key to recreate a sense of belonging for everyone, to give a front row seat, to give a voice to everyone. Also, and the possibility to share the nonverbal feedback, like I was saying a bit earlier, is key as well. But it's a real hard job for the speakers, for the on stage, because they have to manage sometimes 180 degrees audience around them,
Yeah.
plus sometimes an on-site audience during hybrid events. And it's a total different way of interacting with the cameras because it's not you speaking in front of a camera. And we've been doing a lot of events with virtual audience and TV hosts, and they were lost because they used to work on TV and they used to look at the camera. But here, I can turn
Yeah.
my back, show my back to the camera because another camera is going to work with me and I'm going to talk to the audience. And that will completely change the experience because it will be more 180, depends on the size of the studio and the screen. But for the speaker, and the speaker for me is extremely key also on the way you will engage your audience. That's why sometimes it's good to have also one moderator that will engage the chat during the chat for the group and help the speaker that will manage interactivity and the virtual audience. And so no, I think it's a lot of it's a big setup. I think to if you really want to do it perfectly to really engage participants and humanize interaction as much as you can to make the people feel they are part of the event. And even if I mean, one thing for sure, even if your content, I'm not interested personally about the content, you will lose my attention super fast. That's for
For
sure.
sure. For sure.
Because it's not a training. I'm not here for a course. I'm not here for degrees or anything. So
Yeah.
at least if the show is super well set up, if they try to really interact with me, some people will never interact. You can do an event with 50 people inside the same room. It will be always the 3 person with no technology. It will be the same person of the room that will always raise their hand and say, hey, I have something to say. It will be the same in the virtual world. The only
Yeah.
difference is like at least giving a voice to everyone in the virtual world, collecting nonverbal feedback. You can have access to some kind of data that will not be able for you to collect during like an on-site event.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing that. I'm even just thinking, just going back to like the ideas of like, speaking about the latency in the early days, it honestly feels like virtual events are still very much evolving. Like we've reached this stage now where I think there's like a decent balance in terms of like how they're executed, how they work. But there's definitely still a long way to go in terms of keeping people engaged, and even just formats and things like sharing about resetting every 5 minutes. I think that's a concept that more people need to take into consideration. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. Now I
Yeah,
think
and it's
go
hard,
on.
because it's all about the content,
Yeah,
what kind of content you have, and it's a deep, I would say, deep work on the way you integrate interactivity and engagement into the content of the event.
yeah. Content is super key, super key. Can't stress that enough. Um, I think my next question now, just having gone off a couple of these different ones that I've done so far, is what do you think are the key factors to have outstanding events? So, in your opinion, what are some of the keys to having outstanding events, especially today?
Okay, so to keep it simple, I will say, bon, outstanding event for me is event you remember.
Hmm.
Dot. Like, if you leave an event and you don't really, I mean, 6 months later, you say, do you remember that event? Not really. I mean, for me, it's not outstanding, So
Yeah.
event you remember that inspire you and engage you. So what is the secret recipe of engagement? Well, for me, there is three very important things you can leverage to maximize engagement. Attention, active participation, surprise, and emotion. So attention, the minimum is to capture the immediate attention of your audience. Make sure nothing distracts them from your content. That includes good connection, good sound, no latency. If you want to do live engagement. And some methods slash techniques are to bring motion to your events, make things move. And you will see a lot of panel discussions and a lot of events that are extremely static. Where sometimes you were asking me how can we capture everyone's attention. Sometimes so creating motion is so important. Tips number two will be active participation. Make people part of your event. For example, with co-creation, I mean, you want the people to participate. Co-creation is so important. Most of the time, people are not part of your event because they are not participating at your event. And I would say surprise. We're talking about surprise, but surprise and emotions. It's the ultimate boost for me. Create emotional link with your audience. For example, with storytelling or gamification or bring a magician on stage or anything that just will amplify and connect an emotional hook, an emotional climax between your key message and your content where people, so that the people can remember the main point on what you want to say. Sometimes you run to an event, there's a lot of content, but there is no highlight, no emotional connection between what is important to remember versus what is not important to remember. So I think if you want to, we've done a white book also on that, on engagement, and I will share the link with you guys.
Okay.
But I would say, yeah, I mean, like attention, active participation, and surprise and emotion maybe are for me like things that need to be like basic on any kind of event today.
Thanks for sharing that. That's definitely something that I'm going to reiterate at the end: attention, active participation, and surprise and emotion. So, yeah, that's definitely something our audience should keep note of. And we also should make sure to share the ebook. Please share that with us so that we can share that
Yeah,
with the audience as well. And
I
they
will.
have a bit more of an idea of like the concrete strategies that they can use to leverage these different things that you've mentioned. Um, so we're gonna round up very soon, but I just want to ask a couple more questions, and just not keep you for too long. But I still have just a couple more things that I'm very interested in knowing. So can you tell us about like a specific event or experience that has particularly caught your attention? So having worked in the event space, I'm sure you've been involved in tons of them or you've seen tons of them. But what for me, like what the important part of this question is like what has caught your eye? Like what was that event or that experience that you saw and that made you, tip your hats and respect that these people put on like a really good show?
Yeah, so recently, I would say the last 2 years, what I've been personally more like impressed and what we are working on right now, it's like I would say about XR and AR. We talk about AR and XR events, so extended reality and augmented reality events. One specific show was like the Red Bull Batalla World in 2020 during COVID time. So it's kind of like it's a 16 freestylers. It's a Red Bull event. It's 16 freestylers in the Spanish-speaking world battle for the title of world champion at the Red
Okay.
Bull Batalla World Final. And
Okay.
in 2020, they did that in a green screen, huge studio, and this guy were just like. You had a huge battle, and it was a huge green screen, and every like 5 minutes the background was completely changing, and you saw all these guys fighting and battling, but inside a mountain or in a different scenarios. And I was
Interesting.
super impressed about that. And recently we have been working, and we are running a huge event with one of the biggest XR and AR studio. It's a US company called PRG. They have one of the biggest XR studio in Europe, and where they run like XR, it's XR technology. So you are completely immersed into like a virtual studio. And here it's better than green screen because the camera will track you on the scene. And we are going to integrate SparkUp into that. So you will have interactivity, virtual audience, but the scenarios, the stage will be fully like you at some point you have no issue with like light or green screen because the tracking of the video and the LED screen completely follow you on the background. So you can completely change a background every 5 minutes and be on the top of like you can be in Tokyo, you can be in New York. You know, it's fully 3D, developed under the software Unreal. You know, and it's like a video game, but and I think I've been pretty quite impressed recently with this technology. You know, XR and AR, because you can. I mean, for me, that's kind of like the future of events. You know, you will be able to recreate any kind of like scenarios and integrate any kind of scenarios in 3D. You know, and welcome to all of your speakers. And we are working right now on a big project in a couple of months where we'll be integrating all these virtual agents and this engaging technology into the XR studio. And I think I've been quite impressed with on how virtual events and on-site event and we'll just transform the next 5 years into XR and AR studio. I think it's really something super interesting to follow. It's a bit pricey right now. I mean, like to rent this kind of studio.
I can imagine.
But I think it's really, I mean, like the technology is getting there. There's more and more places where you will be able to run like this stage, run your event in 20 countries, a global event, and you have this amazing stage where you can really bring a lot of content, live content.
Yeah.
So pretty
That
impressed with how this technology is coming right now.
Yeah, that sounds very impressive. As soon as this is over, I'm gonna go on YouTube and actually look that up because I will really want to
Yeah.
see what that's like. And I actually have a lot of interest in that industry, like the battle and freestyling industry as well. And actually, now that you mention it, I feel like the idea that you spoke about, where they were kind of changing the background every 5 minutes or so, would that be like a good example of the refresh principle that you were speaking about recently, or earlier?
Yeah, of course, because it's part of the same process. It's part of the same process because what do you do when you and honestly, it's so impressive what these guys do. Uh, and Unreal, you know, the software that develop video games right now and so on, 3D background, is so powerful that imagine every 5 minutes you feel you are in a real environment, and it's
Yeah,
not just like the same LED screen that you will have to look during the same environment, and your speaker also will be on a different environment. And I mean, it's a show, you know, it's
yeah,
definitely a show where, and the world of esport, it's not only corporate events, you know, the esport world, corporate
yeah,
events. Like the entertainment industry as well is going right now. Live concerts, DJ. I mean, so yeah, it's a full reboost. You change environment. You can see yourself still as a participant.
yeah.
You can interact, and the content is key. Is great. So it's a totally new way for me to engage participants. Part of it.
That is very, very cool. Kind of reminds me a bit of like the concerts that would have. I don't know if you're familiar with Fortnite, but they used to have like
Yeah.
exactly. They would have concerts in game and then they would build this entire world where people could experience an artist in real time and they could listen to their music. Very, very interesting.
And we are starting to work with people in the esport world, you know, and the game industry world because they want to. They have the same thing. They have audience, and they have like gamers, and they want to create experience with these gamers, you know. So
Yeah.
it's not called a corporate event. It's called just a game, but there's this huge, massive community of people that want to see this guy playing. And how do you engage participants around the game, you know?
Yeah, that is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I look forward to seeing what the future holds in this respect because it just seems like it could be so fun, you know. But I don't want to take up too much time because we're already kind of running out. I'm gonna finish off with this, maybe possibly one of or two of the questions that we can get from the audience, but I think I'm gonna go with this first. If you could sit down to dinner with three historical figures, for you, who would they be?
Maybe not that famous for everyone, but but I mean, like figures. Okay, I mean, there's a guy. It's very. I mean, in 1880, so and the beginning of the 19th century, there's a guy called George Méliès. He's
Okay.
one of the first one to combine video and magic, and synchronization and video exist. So I should say that synchronization and video exist since 126 years old, you know. And
Okay.
he created one of the first most amazing automaton collections, one of the first holographic concept, and he created the first Magic Academy in France. I'm French. You can see here with my accent. Sorry about that. And yeah, maybe this guy being like 100 years ago, 120 years ago, and speaking with a guy like that, I would say for me was a real visionary man. I would say Arthur C. Clarke. You know this quote, like any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, you know? And he wrote Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey book. So Arthur C. Clarke, maybe. I'd love to meet this kind of guy. He's from like more like 1960, 1950. And, uh, and yeah, maybe I think I've met all the other one I wanted to meet in my life. So that the guy that I will never be able to meet. That's
Interesting. I
two.
wish.
Sorry, I'm missing one. I'm missing one.
Fair Fair enough. Now that's fine. That's pretty fine. And thank you for sharing that. Obviously, it feels like a lot of the people that you look up to are people that kind of interface in this field that you're in. So people that are closely tied into the worlds of magic and music and things. I mean, not music, technology and things like that. So, thanks for sharing that with us. I think usually we ask as well, what three books inspire you, but that might be for another day. I think I want to just quickly jump to one of the questions that we got from the audience, which is from Alex Lumba. He says, "How would you define magic? Is it a science that one can learn, or a set of skills that one person is born with?" So, yeah, I think that's a decent question. Thanks for sharing that, Alex.
Yeah, sure. I mean, magic can be learned. I mean, like there is no like power in to have anything. You know, you can learn magic. It's like everything. It's hours of practicing, and then it's not about just practicing techniques. You know, it's also about just you and the magic. And because the way I was doing magic like 10 years ago is not the same person right now doing the same effect. Let's say I'm doing a trick I was doing 10 years ago. I'm doing the same trick right now. I'm a different person. I've grown. I've seen a lot of different things, and my relationship with magic is different. So yes, you can learn magic, and it's all about your personality with the magic then that you will practice and share with others. Magic creates emotions, joy, the rest, surprise, and that's it. I mean, that's beautiful. You know, it's very federates people as well, wherever you come from, whatever you do in your life. If you're
Yeah,
there is no like level of anything. You know,
yeah,
it's something that really like federates people because everyone is just having the same experience and
yeah,
having their own perceptions. You know, so yeah, I mean, of course, you can learn magic, and I don't have time to give lessons, of course, but there is plenty of way to learn. And I would say you will learn a couple of tricks, but the next things will be more like, okay, then it's not about the trick, it's about like experiencing the more you know and the more that is part of you. And I think for me, magic is at the intersection of everything that I do. And I'm working on a project where I talk about where I'm still using magic, just for fun. I'm launching a bottle of champagne around magic next year.
yeah,
I'm just integrating magic in everything that I do. It's a
yeah.
process, it's a mindset. So yeah, you can learn magic definitely. It's always great
Cool.
if you like people, if you like to show things, because magic just for yourself is fun, but it's way more fun when you perform with
Dope.
other people. For sure.
Yeah. I think we have time just for one more question. And someone says in the comment section, what is the best corporate event that Spark Up has done?
The best corporate
Um,
event that we've done,
right.
maybe the
Yeah.
most impressive. So we've done a global conference like a couple months ago uh, for a corporate company where we had like 45,000 people and 25,000 people. It was a hybrid event with like 35,000 people online on a huge mosaic, and with a lot of rotation because you cannot put 35,000 people on one mosaic. So we have to put a lot of rotation system to be able to see everyone with interactivity and in terms of scalability, in terms of I would say in terms of like interactivity and scalability to be able to have like that amount of people interacting live with like 2 second latency between audience and everything. I think that has been pretty intense for the tech team, compared to a lot of events where you have just 500 people and 1,000 people, which is small event, where we are running. So I would say yes, that has been an event where we have been pretty challenged and it has been pretty stressful to to run because you're like and we are facing a more and more event right now where they're like, hey, we will be 5,000 people on site. We just did another event for a big Mexican company a couple of days ago. They will say, okay, we are like 40,000 people, 10,000 people will be on site, 30,000 online. But we don't want the people online to be able to interact. We only the people that are on site because we want to be sure they come to the event. People were scared. People will be like, we are going to. So I think we are. The more people you have, the more you are dealing with issues about scalability, real time delay, real time engagement, and I think that's pretty challenging. But I mean, we're working on it. But I'm pretty proud we have been able to deliver these events, and that's still going on.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your answer, and thank you, Igor Murphy, for sharing the question on that. We always appreciate engagements and interaction from our audience. But I think at this point, yeah, we've kind of exhausted our time, and Vincent has to go back to his day job. So thank you so much, Vincent, for being with us today. Thanks for
Thank
sharing
you,
your
DG.
Thank you for sharing your experience. This has been a very enlightening session, and we hope that we can hear from you again in the future. I personally am going to connect with you on LinkedIn after this because I'd definitely love to see a bit more about what Spark Up and you personally have going on, and even just seeing what sort of happenings are occurring in the event industry. So thank you super like a lot for sharing this with us today.
Thank you so much for to all the in-event team for the amazing welcome doing this event, hosting these sessions. Thank you, Deji. Well, I know you want to connect with me because you want to go to Burning Man. No offense,
Yes, yes,
but thank you
yeah.
everyone, and it was great. It was great connecting with you guys, and I think you guys have a beautiful platforms. Also, in-event is amazing. So I was really happy to be able to contribute and being there for with you guys.
Thank you so much, Vincent. And thank you to everyone who's joined us from around the world today. You guys are amazing. As usual, we have these every week. So please feel free to join us again next week for another version of In Event Talks. But for now, guys, it has been an incredible experience with you. Bye. Until next week. Take care.
Bye.